Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Okay, I'm ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, great. All right, so we can call the meeting to order then at 6:04. This is the Westland Sustainability Advisory Board. Our first order of business is the approval of the July minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at those? Does anyone have any comments on those? If not, do we have someone to move to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved. Next order of business is going to be member check-ins. I guess since I'm already talking, I'll go first. I'm just back from some travel where I managed to catch a cold. So if my voice is a little difficult to hear, that's why. Still getting over that, but feeling better than I was.
You can go next. We're over in Condon, Oregon at the moment. I urge you to stay at the Condon Hotel sometime where I'm in the lobby, but we're otherwise camping at Cottonwood Canyon, which is this incredibly beautiful place in Eastern Oregon on the John Day River. So getting a lot of nice nature at the moment.
Wonderful. Can't hear you, Victoria.
Sorry about that. Follow Greg. I have been to Cottonwood Canyon Campground, where I pulled out from the boating down the John Day a couple of years ago. So yeah, I'm really glad you're there. Checking in. I had a nice river trip. Sorry to have missed you all at the potluck. I really am, but got to go 50 miles in a canoe down the Green River in Utah.
Oh.
It's an inordinately gorgeous and peaceful and sacred place.
That's wonderful.
Dan, you're next.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. Check-in. Nothing really new to report as far as, like homework or anything. Just since we're talking about trips, I'm excited. My brother and I were able to get a wilderness permit in October to go to Zion National Park. So we're going to go backcountry for 4 days in late October. So very excited about that. So hopefully I'll have some photos to share with you down the road.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I'll pass. Yeah, it's super excited. So I'll pass the baton on to Kate.
Hi, everyone. Big changes in my house with the start of school. I have all three of my kids in school for the first time ever. The youngest started preschool this year. So that's like a huge shift in our house. So I got to go yesterday while the kids were in school and go for a hike with just adults. And it was really nice. We went to Wakena Falls to Multnomah Falls, that loop. You can like a 5-mile loop, and it was just beautiful.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Welcome to a different world.
Right? It's just 4 hours, 3 days a week is what I have. But I'll take it.
That's great.
Okay. Let's see. Dylan, did you want to add anything?
The only thing I will add is we had a family emergency, so I'm solo parenting 6 children while this meeting's happening. So excuse me if I turn my video off or I get distracted, but hopefully they'll be okay downstairs.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
I'm impressed with the 6
Wow.
children. Good Lord.
And I think Charity, I think you'd be the last member.
Hey, I am recovering from COVID
Oh,
again. So if you have a cold, I would highly recommend testing because it might not be a cold. So we thought it was. I'm on my last leg of it. I started feeling bad a week ago on Thursday. Finally tested Friday night and it immediately was bright red. So luckily my whole family's have it. I was the last one to get it. So I've been home isolating and hanging out and with a really nasty, what seems like a head cold. So it's been really exciting times here. So
That's
that's what
boring.
I've been up to.
That's just boring.
Yeah, it's not good.
Best wishes
Not
for a
good.
speedy recovery.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I wanted to turn to our agenda item number 4. We've got Christopher Lapp here from the Clackamas County Soil and Water Conservation District, who we've invited to share with us a little bit about what the district does and what partnership opportunities there might be for us in West Linn. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I had to call in for whatever reason, the video's not, we don't use WebEx, so video just wasn't coming through. But
okay.
Nonetheless, thank you for the invite. Happy to be here, and I think it's quite timely, actually, with this, as what I'll talk mostly about today is a shift in the direction, really, of the district. Just a little background. I came on as the district manager in December of 2000, which, as you recall, we were right in the middle of a global pandemic, and there were no staff here. We were all basically working remote. And I don't know if you know or not, but we have a brand new facility, a conservation resource center, just off the downtown portion, if it is downtown of Beaver Creek. But we have a $9 million facility that, again, was just completed prior to COVID. So if you can imagine the nervousness of having a new facility, no staff can come into it. They moved from their downtown Oregon City office, and then basically everybody had to work remotely. So it's been a bit of a journey, to say the least, and we are finally coming out of that, where we've also instituted a new work model where it's a hybrid work model. So depending on what we have going on at the district, we give the flexibility of folks to still have a workstation at their home. But we are now starting to come together more often and more consistently. And the reason for that, too, is that once I got here and we started to look at where the district had come from, and certainly the expense of building this facility was a strain on the budget. And it was one of those things, and we had just purchased a little over 350 acres out by Estacada of warehouse or property that was able to get some grant funding through the U.S. Forest Service to establish a community forest. But that being said, I mean, just to buy the property was definitely a challenge. We had to bring some tax-based money into that with the grant funding as well. But that put us in a bit of a financial pinch. We're able to work through it. We're coming out of that valley. We're starting to be able to get back to fully supporting not just the operations of the district, but our partners as well. We have 12 watershed councils that we support directly with their missions, and then farmers markets as well. So getting back into that funding stream, what was also opportunistic was that the district was in need of a new vision and strategic direction. So we had just finished that process. It took us a little bit over a year, and I thought if I could, I'll share some of that with you here. If I can see if you'll be able to see this.
Yeah, your screen is up for us now.
Okay. So we've basically completed our strategic plan. It's a short horizon, but that was what we really wanted to focus on, was a 3-year horizon to start to reestablish some concrete strategies and actions that we wanted to pursue moving forward. So this plan, which Mike, I'm more than happy to send you electronic copy to share with the council, the advised strategic plan with you folks there. But to get down to the meat of this, we started to establish some strategies that we wanted to basically look at to serve the greater county in a more effective and efficient way. You know, Clackamas County is huge. It's massive. There's a ton of federal land that we work with. Obviously, a great amount of rural properties and landowners that we work, and then, you know, the urban growth that's occurring too is definitely something that we're paying attention to, and have always had a thumbprint in as far as urban conservation goes, but becoming more engaged as we can, but to a point. You know, we're, I'm just kind of scanning through this so you can kind of see the goals and strategies and action items that we're going to commit to. But, you know, we have, to give you just a little background on the structure of the district, we have programs. So basically we have conservation planning, which is the technical assistance aspect of the district. We're the ones that are going out there meeting one-on-one with landowners and other partners in conservation practices that we work with for folks to put on their property to address any sort of issues, whether they be invasive or noxious weeds, or how to manage their property for better habitat diversity, and also for protection if they have any sort of working lands, whether it be livestock, horses, or any other of those, some row crops. So that's our one program. But then we have our Weedwise program, which is a county-wide support program that works with a lot of partners, and West Linn is one of them, that we are working with them and actually provide assistance, whether it be funding through contracts that we have, to treat noxious and invasive weeds through the integrated pest management practice, which is a variety of different implements that we can do to control noxious and invasive weeds. And then we have our education and outreach program. That's where we bring on workshops. Some of it, a lot now, is going through video technology that we're having with different partners, Clackamas Watershed Council, those types of folks, and bringing training and concepts for folks that can put into place on their property. Underneath that, we have a financial assistance program as well that's bringing certain funding opportunities to landowners. And I'll say one of the ones that's really taken off, well, two of them that have really taken off is the septic loan and septic grant projects that we have. We have loans and grants for addressing failing septic systems in Clackamas County, which is obviously a water quality issue, and we provide those resources to citizens of the county. Our last program is our land management program. As I mentioned, we are now landowners. We have the 350-acre forest out in near Estacada, and then where this Conservation Resource Center building is located, it sits on 15 acres of a previous farmstead that we now have, that we're going to look at and start to move into development as a education and outreach and demonstration site for conservation practices moving forward here in the next 3 years. So those are massive undertakings, and I'll say too, you know, we only have a staff of 17, and that's definitely a drop in the bucket considering the amount of workload that is needed and can be done countywide partnership is massive. Again, like I said, if you looked at Clackamas County and the amount of federal land ownership there, it's over 2/3 of the county. So strong partnerships with U.S. Forest Service, PGE, Bureau of Land Management, and county parks, and cities, municipalities. It goes on quite a bit. But as I say, with the limited staff that we have, we can't be the end all for everything. So we've got to get strategic. We need to do a few things and do them well. And that's the emphasis of this plan, is to really start to narrow down where it can be for the district to make the biggest bang for what we have with tax-based dollars. A lot of it, you know, as we start to look at, is where we become a resource as opposed to an entity, that we can be the one-stop, if you will, to address certain needs that whether a landowner has or a municipality or an agency, to where we can seek out some common ground as to what we think the practices that would be sustainable we could both work in and have a leverage of bringing greater power to it. Also having a website that's effective and direct to where people can easily navigate and start to find some of these resources where we're not having to use staff to go out and spend a lot of time working with landowners on something that perhaps they could find some access tools electronically. So that being said, I know what was on the agenda as far as our invasive species program, and as I mentioned, we do have a program that's active. We are working with your Parks Department with doing some invasive species on property that the city owns. But again, you know, looking at it to where what we want to do is have more of a be more of a referral center, if you will, to address some of these conservation issues that landowners have, but also, you know, look at it in a prioritization scheme of where we can bring support, whether it be loans or grants, to springboard with perhaps additional funding from partners to address those actions that are more fluidity, where we look at not just random acts of kindness, but we have kind of this landscape level conservation mindset where we're trying to look at the functions of the systems as a whole. Lots of tributaries, lots of riparian. Urbanization is starting to have an impact on that. So what can we do with urban communities? We do help support the backyard habitat certification program that I don't know if you're aware of or not, and if West Linn has got some participants, which I think they do.
Yes.
And start to look at that to where the district can expand on that. And quite frankly, environmental education and outreach is a huge component of that, to really start to reach in to those communities. And when we talk about communities, you know, we really want to start to connect with underserved communities. There's a lot of communities out there that are, you know, struggling with just the basic functions, and, you know, having environmental impacts and perhaps, you know, negative impacts.
Is anyone else losing Chris's audio?
Yeah,
I just lost it.
him.
Chris, it looks like you're muted potentially.
Oh, okay. Let me try.
I can hear
I'm
you
on
again.
the phone.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw a little mute
so-
icon show up. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So really, you know, it's a lot of moving parts. Limited staff, limited funding. We do have a tax base, but again, looking at where perhaps with West Linn and this organization, seeking out perhaps crossroads where the district could come in and help, you know, with a partnership, but looking at solutions that again are that are more strategic with what perhaps the West Linn area is dealing with. I think one of the things that's an opportunity that we really haven't delved into, especially in the urban area, is rainwater harvesting. It's a technology that hasn't really been in the forefront of what we've been doing, but we do know that we have had some projects that have been quite successful in the Clackamas County area, and as you know, with things that are changing climatically out there, looking at those solutions holistically and bringing those to a greater audience, I believe the district could have some impact with that. So I know that's a lot of information, and like I said, I'll send the plan to Mike. There's two levels of it, if you will. There's this 24-page plan that kind of dials down into the 3-year action items that we're going to start to implement here. And then there's just a really kind of high-level pamphlet, if you will, that addresses the goals and shows you kind of a lightning strike map of all the past conservation actions we've had in the district, and it's quite impressive. So, it's great momentum to be able to build off of, but again, starting to do things a little bit different. We have to prioritize. The phone never stops ringing here. There's always something that has to be addressed, but we don't have the bandwidth to do that. So we got to look at things in a little different lens, but still be effective and available for the county.
Excellent. Sounds like you do a lot of great work. I know you mentioned that you've done some partnering with the Westland Parks Department. Could you speak to a little bit of detail in terms of how you are engaging with them?
Yeah, I believe from what I understand, it's really been just we've been coming in there with contract crews, and really a lot of it has been focused on spotted knapweed that is in the park properties. And so the way the district does it for us is we have a list of contractors that we bring in and renew their.
I think we might have lost your
Again,
audio
Chris,
again.
yeah.
Chris, I don't think we have your audio up still.
Communities. Am I losing you again?
You just came back from me.
Okay. So yeah, but what I was saying is that the way we've been doing it with West Linn is bringing in contracting crews, and our focus has been on knapweed in your parks property and working with your parks maintenance crew. So that's really been what we've done so far with that, and I believe it's been pretty successful.
Would the district be in a position to do something along the lines of like an evaluation of the green spaces? I know you mentioned something about helping to improve habitat and develop like conservation planning.
Yes, there's a need. I think at least we'd be interested to see what the details of that would be. That would certainly fall under our conservation planning priorities. If we knew exactly what that is, one of the things that we do have a strong partnership with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the federal NRCS, and I will say, again, timing is everything, that the Inflation Recovery Act funding, the federal dollars that are coming down for that are quite impressive. There's a lot of federal dollars that are now starting to work their way down, and NRCS is going to be the recipient of a fair amount of those dollars. That one of the programs we've been looking at that we still do here is really oak savanna, oak woodland conservation and enhancement. I suspect you've got some oak communities over there in the Westland areas in your green spaces. It's become a high priority, certainly, within Clackamas County and obviously in the Willamette Valley, and starting to look at, there's dollars that are coming down now that are going to be bringing more funds that we can work with through NRCS that expands our program. We have strategic implementation area for oak conservation. So that's one aspect of it that perhaps West Linn could benefit from our conservation planning. But looking at your green space program in general, I think that's something we could certainly consider finding out what the scope of that would be.
Okay.
I think, Chris, one of the questions I've got is there have been really significant efforts to remove blackberries and to lesser extent ivy, as well as canary reed grass, particularly down around Willamette Park. And one of the things that has happened is that because the efforts that haven't been sustained, then the canary reed grass and the blackberries come back. So areas that had been clear 4 or 5 years ago are almost more infested with invasives now than at that point. And I know that the city just doesn't have enough staff or resources to be able to kind of return to places that volunteers had worked on in the past. And I'm just wondering, like, whether or not your organization would be able to help us really get a handle on that through funding or through contracting with groups who would be able to kind of come back to these areas, like, for 4 or 5 years in a row, to be able to really get rid of the blackberries and the canary reed grass.
Yeah, those are huge commitments. Yeah, and they are long-term commitments to try to be able. You'll never get rid of it, but you'll be at least, one of the strategies would be to set it back enough to where you can start to get some native plants in there, because both of those invasives are shade intolerant.
Right.
So if you're able to get native canopy in place, you'll eventually reduce the infestation. Again, that's a tough order, and I think one of the best avenues the district could provide is perhaps if you did have some volunteer groups that were committed to that, we could provide guidance as that and kind of lay out a treatment plan, if you will, on how to best go about it. It sounds like you've already made the commitment, but that's the thing, you can't step away, and you've got to continue that. But then again, you've got at that point where you feel like you've got it suppressed to a level where you can introduce native trees and shrubs. Those are some funding sources that perhaps the district could participate in, or direct the West Linn group to where you could get those. Again, there's I can't emphasize enough. I think it was just released last week, where the Forest Service it was millions and millions of dollars that they were bringing out through a grant process for communities as far as forest health, certainly looking at shade trees, as far as a temperature gradient for urban areas. And I believe, I think Gresham, I'm trying to think, I don't think there was anything in Clackamas County, but we're talking millions of dollars that they're bringing into communities for those. So my point in all that is there's money out there. You just got to kind of know where to go after it and how to best situate yourself to do it. We can certainly help up to a point, but as I mentioned earlier, we just don't have the bandwidth to be able to.
Would it be possible after this meeting to get in touch with you about where the source of that income might be, so we could potentially work with one of the staff people in Parks and Rec here to see whether it would be possible to get a grant to support that kind of invasive plant removal and the planting of natives?
Yeah, Greg. We can certainly have that conversation. Our vision, as I mentioned, is for the district to kind of be that resource center.
Great.
To be able to direct you to the entities that you could put those applications towards.
Excellent. Okay, do we have any other questions for Chris? Okay, take that as
I
a
just
no.
had,
Oh,
I
go ahead.
just had one quick question about
Yeah.
the rain harvesting and what, I'm just curious about that program. Is it something it's going in place, you said, or you're looking at that? And
Yeah, we don't have a full-blown program that's available yet to the public. It's something that we've kind of done it more of a technical assistance, working with some landowners that was more rural. But again, that's one of the things that we addressed in the strategic plan, is starting to get the sideboard to put together as to the resources that we can offer up, you know, and whether it's just even information and the mechanics of how to implement a rainwater harvest system around your place of residence. That's what we'd like to do. I will say, you know, one of the things that has been a bit of a frustration, one of the recent projects where we were providing technical assistance to a landowner for a rainwater harvesting process that was almost like a catchment basin of a newly developed home in Lake Oswego, was met with resistance by their planning department. So if anything, I see a group like this being a vessel to where if we do have some issues with the municipality's planning department, that we have a voice to try, you know, more than one voice to really educate and stress the importance of that, to where it doesn't become something where you know, the planning rules and policies become an obstacle for us, and that again lies with education. I don't know.
thank you.
What,
I'd seen and I work with the school district a lot, and so I'd seen in, not in our district, but a different school, that they were in the bathrooms. They said it was something about that they use rainwater as to, you know, flush the toilets. Like, it's like they're used as a gray water system, obviously, and I thought that was really cool. So I was just curious about like how that would be how it could be implemented and like what you've done. So yeah, I'm very interested in that. That's very cool.
yeah, schools are a great, you know, example of being able to showcase something like that, or you know, places of business to really, you know, have kind of that a broader scope for people to be able to experience and see it in action, and that's really kind of where you know, really start to, the rubber meets the road. But yeah, again, I stay tuned. Definitely, you know, we're here. You know, we're a resource for you folks. So as we slowly move forward and get these things in place, this is where you want to come to start to have those discussions and concept ideas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm wondering if you have any examples of kind of successful partnerships you've had with any other cities or municipalities in our area that maybe we could learn from? Does that make sense?
As far as just any specific conservation practices, I'll just tell you, the Weedwise program is probably a really prime example. We're probably engaged with just about, well, let's see, a fair amount of the municipalities around this area, everything from Canby to Lake Oswego, Oregon City. That would be a great first step to just, get you in touch with our Weedwise program manager and have that individual give you kind of a synopsis of what we've been doing, working with municipalities and what that entails. Again, a lot of it is really kind of working with the parks and recreation maintenance staff to kind of bring additional resources, if you will, to treat invasive and noxious weeds within the green space program. So it would be something that I think, and certainly, you'd be wanting to talk to your your West Linn Parks maintenance folks, because again, we are working with them. Perhaps there's something that could be built off of that.
I think Kate's connection might be frozen.
Yeah, I could hear, but I lost my video for a minute.
Would that help you, Kate, if we brought you in connection with the Weedwise program folks?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I was just, I hear you saying that, your like strength is kind of in the providing resources. And so that's what I was kind of trying to understand what other ways you're working with other folks. But that makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions for Chris? Okay, if not, we'll thank Chris for joining us. Definitely appreciate you you coming in and sharing part of your evening with us. And I'm sure we'll be in
Thanks, Chris.
touch.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, thanks.
And I'll shoot those plans to you, Mike, if you want to distribute them.
Great, yeah, and I'll forward that to the rest of the board.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks again and have a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let's see here. Our next agenda item is to see if we can get an update from Dylan about the status of the tree code update, sustainability consultant, and any potential funding avenues for electric vehicle infrastructure.
All right. Yeah, the tree code status. Planning, so that's on the planning docket, which I was going to share with you guys if you don't know. It lives on our website. It's not coming up. All right, so this is the planning docket. And this is how the planning department prioritizes their work. And it's something, it goes through the planning commission and then it comes to council. And they have tons of projects going on. You can see like the waterfront, Highway 43 rezoning. Those are some of the bigger ones. House Bill 2003, which is a housing bill. All sorts of things. One of them is clear, climate friendly and equitable communities, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Those are kind of the things that are at the top of their list. And then some prioritized projects. And then this section is where we're going to get projects identified by council, planning commission, but not yet prioritized. And they're like categorized by small, medium, and large. And at the very bottom, you can see a tree code evaluation amendments. It's here, it's added, but it hasn't been prioritized by the council just because there's too many other priorities that planning's working on. So it exists. Council and the Planning Commission was scheduled to meet this in September to look at that again. And I know there was council had some interest in kind of bumping that up possibly, but that meeting got pushed off because of other priorities. So I guess the bottom line is we're still waiting for Planning Commission and council to get together to talk about that. That's where that's at.
Is there a sense for when that next planning commission meeting would be scheduled for?
No, not September, October, I don't believe. But there hasn't been a date yet. It's just kind of living on the to be added to the calendar list right now. They haven't.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next piece, sustainability consultant. The city manager had a contact with a sustainability consultant and Kim Bria, who was one of the past SAB members. And I reminded him again last week. And so he was going to try to connect with Kim. He's out of the office right now. So maybe next week, maybe there'll be some movement on that. So that's in process. And then funding, it was listed later in the agenda too. I can hit on it now, or we can hit on it later about EV charging stuff.
Dylan,
Yeah.
were you saying that Kim is asking to be the consultant?
No, she knows someone.
Yeah, I think she knows someone. Yeah. And I think
Thank you.
Greg checked in with her too.
Yeah,
All right.
and she was talking about finding somebody from the good company who has worked with a number of other municipalities in the Portland area and actually around the state who had expressed some interest in this. So I'm hoping that John and will be able to kind of get that person's name and then begin acting on it.
Okay,
Mhm.
good. Thanks.
And I can just go ahead and jump into the EV charging stuff. That's,
Sure, why not?
yeah.
Yeah, we can rearrange things a little bit here.
Yeah, so there's at least 3 grant programs that we've been talking about at City Hall. One, there's an ODOT program that's currently only accepting applications from disadvantaged and rural communities right now. So, but we're hoping there's going to be a future phase for us. So we're going to watch that one. And I think that ODOT program is the federal pass-through dollars that goes to the state and then comes to us. And then the Oregon Department of Energy program is, we're waiting for announcement of the next round of funding. So our public works staff is on the list waiting for the announcement for that to come. And we'll look at that and hopefully apply for that. And then the one for sure we know we're going to apply for, PG has some funding coming up, and the next round is the next application cycle opens in February, and it's on Public Works is scheduled to put in an application for that. We were successful with one of those before, so we're hoping the same. So those are the 3 we know about. I don't know if Greg had any more on that topic.
Yeah, I got an email from folks at ODOT yesterday, and they listed the community charging rebate program, the carbon reduction grant program, and the charging and fueling infrastructure grants program. So I will share all of those with whoever in the city is actually working on this. Who in the city is kind of exploring these possibilities?
It's kind of our Public Works administrative staff.
So Public Works Administrative
But
staff. So
you can send it to me and we'll kind of all work together on it.
okay, so
Yeah.
and I'm still waiting to find out whether or not we would be qualified for the I guess it's called the National EV Implementation Program, which is the federal pass-through dollars. Whether Westland could still apply for dollars for 2025, even though 2024 is the year that will focus on I-205.
Mm-hmm. And then the other piece of this is there has been talk about adding staff. That's part of the problem is we don't have somebody that does grant writing. We're all just kind of juggling it as part of everything else we do. There has been talk of hiring a grant writer. So that might come and that might help us like find more of these things and apply. So that's also in the future.
Glad to hear that.
Who is it that's doing the talking about finding the person to do the grant writing?
It came up in the budget process. So council and the city manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Council and city manager. Okay. And I had one other question, which is this grant writing for EV, whatever. What is the whatever? What is it we're actually thinking of applying to get grants for?
And that's the EV charging stations.
Okay.
And that is something.
2 or fast chargers?
Say that one more time.
Level 2 or
Level
fast
2,
chargers?
level 2 Victoria. Yeah.
All of them?
And it's what I got from the Department of Transportation is that they say that they have money rebates will range from $4,250 per port to $5,500 per port, or cover up to 75% of the eligible costs, whichever is less. So it's it's money. 75% would actually help a lot in terms of getting these EV charging stations scattered around town. The other thing that Dylan mentioned to me yesterday, and I think Rory had gotten in touch with me as well, was that it would be helpful for the city to have our input as to where those EV charging stations could be located around the city. And for the ODOT folks, they say like they're really interested in publicly accessible sites, and it includes things like shopping centers, restaurants, grocery stores, gyms, coffee shops, laundromats, movie theaters, etc. So we we could basically kind of sit down at one of our meetings and try to kind of identify 4 or 5 places where it would be really helpful to install some charging stations that would be accessible to I-205, but also to the rest of the community.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, Greg beat me to the punch, which was, we were looking for SAB to give a recommendation on locations for charging stations that would be competitive in the grant process. So And that could be a project that would hopefully we could get going on soon so that we kind of have something ready when the grants come. And then it might help our grant applications to be able to say, we have this community group, identify these locations, and that might help bolster our application. So that's a project we can take on. It would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's something we can work on. Excellent.
Yeah, and that's all I had on that agenda topic, I think.
Okay, thank you. So next up here is the proposing potential resolutions for the council to adopt. I know we discussed this in our planning earlier in the year, but this would be things along the lines of saying, we're not committing to it now, but when, say, this water heater in a city facility is no longer serviceable, it gets replaced with something that is electrically powered rather than natural gas powered. This could be something along the lines of saying that the city will no longer purchase lawn maintenance equipment, or landscape maintenance equipment that is gas powered. So I guess we wanted to just kind of have an open conversation with the group members about things that are kind of no cost commitment in the immediate, but we could have the council say down the line, we think this is the right decision for the city to be making. Is there still an interest in doing that or pushing for those?
Absolutely.
So, Mike, do you think it would make sense for a couple of us to work outside the context of this meeting and our 1.5 hour meetings to come up with language for a resolution that we could then discuss, revise, and then vote on at our next meeting?
That sounds like a nice idea.
Sure.
And we can pass that along to Lou for discussion with the council once we've agreed to any language that we come up with.
Yeah, because it seems like the whole thing is just coming up with a replacement strategy that would really focus on electrification.
Yes. Excellent. Okay, so yeah, we can get to working on that. I imagine that will probably be facilitated mostly through email in the immediate future, but that's a good thing for us to get going on.
So I'm curious just about how other folks on the board kind of see that as something that we might want to pursue.
Definitely.
I'm supportive of that.
Yeah.
Great idea.
It's simple, it's straightforward, and it doesn't cost any money right now.
I'm happy to help draft it with somebody else, but
Dan, I would work with you.
That would be great.
And I'd have you be a third party to that as well. So
great.
Yep, me as well. Maybe we can start with just some emailing back and forth about specific topics that we want that to cover. And go from there.
Is there somebody who wants to take the lead on that, just to kind of initially get us together?
I'm happy to do that.
All right.
Fantastic. Good.
All right. So if there's nothing else there, then we can move on to item number 7, which is the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Program. Let's see, what do we have for this? I had some notes here, but where did they go?
And if Dylan's around, he said he would have some things to share as well.
Okay, yeah, I think, the notes here, we're basically hoping to have a conversation with Dylan about the primary areas that the city is going to be focusing on in terms of implementing that rulemaking. I think right now it's just parking requirements.
Right. Yeah, that's what's happening right now. So yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, this Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Act it's built because our transportation pollution, Oregon set some climate pollution goals. We're coming nowhere near them. They wanted to reduce, was it by 75% by 2050, reduce climate pollution. we're way off track. And that, like, I think sounds like right now on our current path, we're only looking at hitting 20% by 2050. So that's why they built these rules. The Land Conservation and Development, or LCDC, created them. And there's 4 areas where they're hoping to kind of bring down emissions and transportation. And the first one's reforming parking mandates, and one that's already active. It's already happening, which essentially means with any new development, they can't put any parking requirements on any new development within half a mile of any TriMet lines, which essentially, I've seen the map of it, it's almost the whole city. So already we can't require parking anymore. So that's, the idea is to, kind of move towards more walkable communities, it's all long-term goals. So that's already in process.
I have a question
Dylan?
to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I know that the 154 line is being removed, or at least it had been discussed removing it. I assume that's still happening, and that removes a significant portion of the city from that requirement. Is the city planning to act as if that? If you need a moment, that's fine too.
Sorry, the kids just came up.
Yeah, no worries.
It's getting hard to hear. I have not heard about the TriMet line. It's going away. I've not heard that.
Yeah, 154. And I know
Yeah.
Kim was talking about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just the 35 that they're keeping. And maybe this has changed. Maybe there's been some pushback on it, but I know at one point that was on the chopping block.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would propose that the city act as if it's going to stay there. Greg, I think you're muted.
Went back. So Dylan, with regard to the parking requirement, is that primarily for multifamily housing?
I think it's
Or would
everything, is my
So it
understanding.
would even be commercial areas, but it couldn't be residences. Is it residences?
That's my understanding, yeah.
So it'd have to be street parking, so a person could not have a driveway?
I think so. I mean, this is like question, planning is implementing all these things. I don't know all the details. They did say they could come to a meeting and talk about this more if you had more detailed, or I can go back to them and ask questions. But yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty amazing to have a house without a driveway. So
I imagine that isn't what they mean, though. I would like to see that more explicitly laid out.
I'd like to bring up something that I think fits with this, which is Mayor Rory B. was talking about having a shuttle and in West Linn and talking about more EV. And I said, are you talking about maybe an electric shuttle? And he said, could be. So I think that's something that'd be appropriate for this advisory board to propose, that if there's going to be a shuttle that runs around West Linn, much the same as Canby has one, it should be electric.
Yeah.
Yeah, no argument there.
But I think we need to put this into print along with some of our other recommendations.
Yeah. So then, yeah, the next part of the Climate Friendly Act is improving EV charging, which we've kind of talked about in the past. One of the rules, it's active now, but we still have to change our code, and it is putting in conduit for EV and multifamily residential and mixed use development. And you might recall before that law also precludes us from requiring it in like single family residential. So not required there, but in multifamily it is required already, and our code has to be updated.
Dylan, could I ask about the updating of that code? Is that something that the city staff and the city council will do just in response to this state mandate, or is it something that we should become involved with as well? It sounds like we don't really need to get involved with it, right?
Yeah, I don't think much SAB's involvement is needed in any of these things that are happening.
Yeah.
Planning did say they might wrap SAB in at some stage, but not right now.
Okay.
There's nothing like actively needed. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the laws are pretty straightforward. The parking rules, at some point, we got an extension on, I think the deadline was back in June, and we applied for it and got an extension because we just don't have the staffing, and they're trying to get a grant and a consultant to implement all these rules because it is a massive amount of text and work. So they got extensions to 2024 to actually update the code for the parking reform and the EV charging. Because there are some options related to parking. One is just like you take out parking like kind of blanket, and then the other one is it's much more specific but much harder to implement. So planning commission will make a recommendation and council will have to approve it. But so that's all the parking stuff.
I think one thing that I could speak
Mhm.
to on the parking is the way that I'm reading much of this language is it's not that the city is required to forbid parking in certain circumstances. It's that they are not allowed to require it.
Correct. Yeah, people can still put
So
the
for
parking in if the
yeah, so
market.
like for single
Yeah.
family houses, it's like yeah, there's going to be a driveway.
Yeah.
The city
Yeah.
can't just say there must be a driveway.
Right. Exactly. And then the other pieces of it are like transportation systems plans, which we are waiting. Metro has to update their regional transportation plan, which happens in December 2023. And then based on that update, then we may have to update our city's transportation system plan with whatever comes out of the Metro process. And then the last piece, and I don't think it happens till 2025, is you have to designate some areas as town centers, which I think we already have ours, which would be like the Bolton Town Center, although it's quite large, like Market of Choice all the way to 205. And the other one is like the Willamette area, but it's like a large Willamette area, like the Mill area, all the way to historic. So, and that they have to be designated as town centers. The idea being, you build them up as these places where people can walk and live and eat and do all the things without.
You wouldn't be doing that for up on the hill either.
That wasn't in what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, because
was
it
kind of-
seems like it would make sense for like near City Hall and the Safeway area to be considered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a possibility, but that's further in the future. Yeah.
Okay.
Like one of the issues that's interesting down in Willamette is that we used to have grocery stores, but no longer do. And so like, what can the city do to really kind of encourage the introduction of a grocery store? Now, there's no way that we can walk to a grocery store without going up Salamo. And so like how the city grapples with that, I'm not sure. When the decisions are basically made in corporate headquarters, where the Albertson and the Safeway folks basically say we don't need a store down in Willamette. So it's an interesting dilemma. And I'm just curious, in conversations about that whole issue, is that dilemma raised?
I don't know. I'm sure it is. I used to live in the Willamette area, and I used to walk to that. It was a Century back then. I used to be.
Yeah.
My grandparents would bring me in a wagon down to the grocery store to get candy and stuff. So yeah, I remember those days when we had it down there. But yeah, yeah, it's hard because you're working with the market and grocery stores
Yeah,
are hard.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not quite sure what the answer is.
So I would have liked to have seen a Trader Joe's where the Park Rose hardware is right now, and the Ace hardware stay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of community demand for that. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But not enough for Trader Joe's corporate to do it.
Yeah.
I did hear a rumor that from somebody in New Season's management that there might be some interest in West Linn in the future. So, but at least that's a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, I have a question. The state of Oregon attracts certain businesses by giving tax breaks. Can't the city of West Linn attract a grocery store by giving a tax break?
I think it's a possibility. There are ways to encourage businesses, yeah, that I don't know all the mechanisms exactly, but yeah.
Who
I have
does?
heard of
Who knows
that.
those things?
Say that again. I missed it.
Who knows those things? Who knows the mechanisms and how that works?
I think our city manager would probably, from his experience at Metro and things. Yeah, I could ask him. Yeah.
You ask him, Dylan, and then
Yeah.
maybe Victoria, I would enjoy chatting with John about that, just to see like what kind of mechanisms could be actually adopted. And it's the sort of thing we could actually propose as a resolution again,
Yeah.
that the city really explore the possibility of giving tax breaks to a grocery store that's needed in a particular area.
Yeah.
And I think one of the values of something like that is that multiple interest groups would be interested in that beyond us. That's good for business. It's good, lots of residents would like that. Not necessarily, people beyond the sustainability scope too.
Mhm.
Certainly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I had on that topic. If you want to move on.
Thank you. That's a lot.
Good. Thank you. All right. So we've already touched on EV charging stations and federal funding. So we're going to move to item 9, community outreach. And we just wanted to take a little time to review the Old Time Fair and the farmers market, and just kind of chat about how that went, what did we learn, and whether or not we should pursue those kinds of things in the future as well. So I know I didn't get to participate in the Old Time Fair, but I did sit at 2 farmers markets. We came up with the idea of having free seeds for people to come pick up, and that was really popular. But for the majority of people that I spoke to, that was kind of the extent of their interest in what we were doing. Might have had one conversation outside of why are you giving away free seeds? But I'd be interested to hear what everyone else's experience was.
Mike, I would agree. I didn't think, well, I was sitting there with you, and yeah, we didn't get a whole lot of, dialogue going on with, other than the seeds, it seemed like. I think there was a minor conversation about us being a B designated B city or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a valiant effort, but I don't think there was a lot of, return on our investment, if you will.
That was my sense as well. I really enjoyed hanging out, like with Mike and Victoria and Dan. And, it was like it was a good thing to do. But again, I'm not sure it really was kind of addressing the whole issue of bringing our message to the public, which I think was what our intention was. So it raises questions just about like what else we might do. And I think I was going to talk a little bit about the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network later on in the meeting, and there's some ideas there that might be worth pursuing as well.
Great. Okay. And who else? I can't recall who all was able to participate at the farmers market. Victoria.
Yeah, I had a couple of good conversations with people who were primary and preschool teachers. They,
Oh.
yeah, those were the most interesting. They stopped and wanted to talk about it, and a couple of folks from the garden, but that's just because that's how I knew them. So yeah, I don't see it as being a real educational.
Yeah, I think the main point of doing the farmers market, like when we just to try it out, like like the one we did for the arts and culture, is more for awareness. It's not really to like, it is to give awareness to that we have a sustainability advisory board for West Linn.
Yeah.
So I think that was the whole point of doing it, is just so people can walk by and like, oh, I didn't even know we had a sustainability. there's a what board. So I think having one there was really great. I appreciate everybody participating in it, because I feel like I'm constantly telling people, yes, we have a sustainability advisory board for West Linn, and people have no clue that we have one. So I find that very interesting.
Actually, yeah. My friends are still willing. They're busy and slow to act, but they're still willing to make a big sign for us that will. They're graphic artists.
Yeah, so I mean,
The,
I would love to hear what Greg knows about the Lake Oswego group, like what things they do as far as awareness
and I do think that the Earth Day event at the Ale and Cider House seemed to be pretty successful, just in terms of the numbers of people who came in. So I would say that's one thing that we should really look at doing again next year.
Mm-hmm.
So if other people feel that way as well, it seems like worth pursuing, because it was just interesting to have the different groups who were there, and there were a number of people who kind of wandered through and talked to us.
Yeah, very true.
I,
I think the two like in-person events that we've actually tried to organize have been the most successful. That and the film screening.
Right.
yeah, the phone screen was great.
Yeah, having
Yeah,
in-person
I'm
events
happy
with
to.
like a specific purpose is a good avenue to
Is a
go down.
great.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm happy and grateful that you all tried the farmers market and we gave it a go, and I'm happy to help coordinate for the Earth Day again. And now we have more time and can advertise more, so I think we'll have even probably a bigger crowd. So so yeah, I think it's a great idea.
And what about the old time fair?
Yeah, who was present for that? I know I was out of town.
I was there in Victoria and Dan, I think. No, just Victoria and me and one other. Was it just you and me, Victoria?
Yeah.
I
There
think so, yeah.
was a person there. There was a table there from the electric bikes,
Right, yeah,
and so there were those folks.
yeah.
And we worked again on the concept of better signage, better visibility, maybe even a better location. I don't know. I don't mind doing it. I think it's
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah, it's fun to do.
Yeah.
So maybe this next year you just do the old time fair is the one thing. If you want to do the farmers market, it's easy because we literally have a free space whenever we want. If you wanted to do it, and just for awareness, just to have some awareness or something like that.
I think if we could leverage the free seeds with a giant sign that says "Free Seeds from the Westland Sustainability Advisory Board," and that might get more people to come by.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
So a lot
just
of people,
bigger signage might be helpful, but
yeah, I know
Um,
people saw the seeds and just kind of like looked at us and kept going. But when we said free seeds, they'd turn around and come back and free,
Well,
really?
free seeds.
We'll
Yeah.
take them.
anything that's free peanuts, anything.
I know.
So it seems like
Yeah.
Old Time Fair and Earth Day would be worth doing in terms of these kinds of public outreach, and then figure out
Yeah.
other things that we might want to do as well.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
so, yeah.
because there's a lot of foot traffic at that old time fair. I also could not participate because I had family in town and we were gone. So, but that sounds like a great idea.
Okay. I'll maybe have a sign together by next year.
Excellent. All right, so next up is the possibility of doing some sort of like event co-sponsorship with the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. I think Greg might be able to speak most to this.
Yeah. It turned out that Lisa had forgotten her folder at my house, so I went back to deliver it to her. And when I saw her, she had been thinking about ways that we might be able to collaborate, and thought that actually doing some kind of presentation discussion about the challenges tied into electrification with regard to the expansion of the grid, with regard to just coordination NIMBYism with regard to like the grid being placed in new areas, as well as just getting enough trained workers to be able to do all of this. And I've been in the climate change discussion group that I'm involved with. We spent 3 sessions looking at it, and I think Lisa was really interested in what we had been learning, and so she thought it would be great to have a meeting like at Robinwood Station, and bring Lake Oswego and West Linn folks together and collaborate on just the development of some kind of like a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon conversation about this, plus information, find some speakers with it, and try to kind of organize something like that, really publicize it well, and let it be in person. So what would you think about my continuing conversations with Lisa about trying to do something like that?
I applaud it.
Yep, very much in favor.
Yeah, sounds great.
So I'll talk with Lisa and see what else we can do with regard to that. Go out there that way? Great. Thank you very much for letting us be here. They're closing up the hotel lobby at the moment.
Oh, okay.
We have a way to get out, right? So the other thing that I wanted to just remind people about is that there is this electric home and vehicle fair in Lake Oswego on Saturday. It gives you an opportunity to actually see what the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network have been up to, and it runs from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it will be at the LO Methodist Church on 1855 South Shore Boulevard, which is just off of McVeigh. So it's easy to get to from West Linn, but I encourage you to try to get there just to see how they organize things, because it's the sort of thing that we could potentially be doing as well. And actually, I know that the folks at Robinwood Station are really interested in using that facility and supporting it for these kinds of activities. And so Robinwood Station might be a good place to, in fact, try to do some of this stuff.
Mhm.
Great.
So that's basically all I have to say, but I'll get in touch with Lisa and see what we can kind of pull together with regard to some kind of public event to really look at the challenges of electrification.
I have a quick question, Greg, or anyone really. So our name finally came up for my husband and I for our electric vehicle, electric SUV finally. And I'm just curious, is there any more rebates, grants, anything that it is going on for incentives for buying an electric vehicle?
Well,
Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, I mean, there's that federal tax credit of $7,500, and beginning in January 2024, my understanding is that that's going to be available on the front end to the consumer. So in other words, like when you purchase whatever EV, the purchase price will actually be $7,500 less, like right up front. And the dealership actually has to apply with the federal government for the tax credit rather than you having to deal with that. So I think my hope is that's going to spur a lot of people to make that purchase. It's less money they have to finance or pay, up front.
Yeah.
And
So
is that only?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is that only still for American-made EVs? That's my impression.
It is, yeah,
yeah.
it is. However, there is a really big loophole in the program where you can actually lease a vehicle that's not made in the U.S. and you get that tax credit as
Really?
it's factored into the lease. So that's actually it's a huge loophole that I don't know if it was made on purpose or not, but in any event, I know a lot of people are already taking advantage of that lease option. So
thank you.
So we don't have to wait till January to get that.
Correct. The lease deal. Yeah.
The lease deal, but what about the buying?
So if you bought it now, I mean, you would likely get the tax credit, but it's on you as the consumer to, you're still paying your regular price, and then
Right.
you have to work with your CPA to, do the appropriate paperwork. Whereas I know for myself, I'm holding off till January just because you get that, it's a lot simpler and you get that refund, or, the credit, not a refund, a credit, like right away when you're purchasing the
Right.
vehicle. So,
That's
yeah,
that's big. That's big. I wonder why
it
why
sure
they keep
is.
calling us, because they're like, your name. Well, you really want to get it. I wonder if they're trying to get an extra $7,400 out of us.
Yeah, they're, I think there's going to be a lot of purchases happening in January.
Oh, okay. That's great to know. I appreciate
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
All right. So next item of business is just to discuss the potential to invite somebody from Westland Refuse and Recycling to talk with us next month about the food compost pickup option. I think I'd be in favor of doing that.
Yes, I think that'd be great.
I would too.
Okay.
They've been invited. They are
Oh,
planning to come
excellent.
October. Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yay.
Easy.
And if you can all help me remember, I know there was interest in putting recycling down in Willamette Main Street.
Yeah.
And so if you guys want to bring that up next month, help remember that piece of it too.
Sure. Okay, that was easy. Next item, number 12. Any new business that anyone would like to bring up?
I know Victoria got in touch with me about just thinking about being able to meet more regularly in person. And I think we
Yeah.
had agreed to meet in person at least once a quarter. And what I'd like to propose that we have a meeting in November, again at the Adult Community Center up in the hill, and maybe do a potluck and then use that meeting as a time to really kind of come up with our recommendations for the city council for 2024, if that makes sense to folks.
Definitely.
So
We need to
you said
be thinking about our report at the end of the year as well.
Yeah,
But-
right.
did you say November? Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, November,
It
yeah,
would be.
for the November meeting.
The
Because we need to,
16th?
Is that right? November 16th?
That is correct.
okay. And then I think we can, we can have a conversation about kind of meeting more frequently. I know, Victoria, are you going to renew your membership on the SAB? Are you still there?
She's muted. Victoria, you're muted.
Sorry to be trying to be polite and then I forget. So I don't know if I can renew it. I don't know if we have one term only or if they're renewable. Does anybody know?
Do you know, Dylan?
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I think you can reapply. Yeah, it's up to council.
Okay.
So if
Well-
you were dropping off, I know that like I think there was a possibility of changing. There was a possibility of changing the meeting time, but I think if you want to stay, we should stay with our Thursday meeting time and then kind of figure out how to work around, Dylan's need and every other people's needs, just in terms of meeting online.
Mhm.
Yep.
So,
Okay. I should be fairly flexible.
okay.
I'm retired.
No, right. I think there was a time in the afternoon when we had talked about meeting at 4 o'clock on days that worked for Dylan and I think one other person, and it was going to conflict with something that you had.
Yeah, I'm busy on 4 o'clock on Mondays.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, let's look at that later. I don't want to have everybody's schedule hinging on mine.
Right. So we can maybe revisit that in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Great.
Okay, is there anything anyone else would like to raise? Looks like I saw your hand pop up, Dylan.
Yeah, I got one more thing. So I think I mentioned, council, they reviewed their goals on September 5th and they added wanting to add more EV charging stations. And so we talked about SAB taking that on as a project. The other council goal that we haven't really talked about is SAB to recommend ways to reduce gas powered equipment use in West Linn, things like electric equipment incentives. So yeah, kind of touched on that earlier, but that's the other council goal that would be good. So I feel like those two things would be good for us to focus on, since they're kind of council goals. Can't hear
You're
you.
muted, Greg.
With regard to the incentives, would that be for folks who are not tied into city, like it would be for the entire citizenry?
I think it's open to interpretation. I know PG did have an electric equipment incentive program last year, and they did like an event, I think at one of our parks. So, I mean, it could be something along those lines of partnering with PG. I don't know. I think it's pretty open. It's just looking for ways, because we do hear a lot of complaints about the noise of things like leaf blowers, and there has
leaf
been
blowers are insane because everybody's yard people come at different times and it's just constant. I feel like they need to be outlawed.
Yeah, could
There's a
the city
lot
have
of people. We have heard that before.
could the city have an ordinance that, maybe doesn't explicitly forbid them for, community members, but for commercial contractors?
Yeah, I mean, it has been talked about. I think it's a really complex topic, because you start doing that, then everyone's yard maintenance business, it's just, yeah, it's a whole different landscape. And to operate in West Linn, it's a sweeping change, I guess. Difficult thing
No pun
to
intended.
do.
Yeah.
So, sounds like a topic worth devoting some time to at a subsequent meeting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Wasn't there a third thing that we were going to ask the city to look at, which is a canopy, or the code for the tree canopy, and how to get that one adjusted? Or let's move that to talking about next time. But I know that kind of, we talk about it and then it drops, and that's something that I think is expensive to change in the code for the city, but I don't remember exactly what's happening with that.
Oh, Dylan talked about that at the outset, and it's part of that whole prioritization.
Yeah,
And,
okay,
it's on their priority list, but it's very
but it's
low.
not listed yet. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
I think a point of clarification might be that it's on the planning docket, but the planning docket has a priority list and it's not on the priority list.
Yeah. Okay.
But that there might be some desire to reconsider its placement on the priority list, I think is what Dylan said.
That's where I think things are at.
Well, we just keep nagging.
Yeah, I was going to say that the one thing you could do, you could go to when the planning commission and council meet, you could lobby them at that point. And
All right.
This is really important to us for whatever reasons, try to bump it up or put money towards it,
All right.
Dylan, do you think we've already done that to the city council? Should we do it to the planning committee as well?
I mean, it doesn't hurt. That's
okay.
You guys' role, right, to recommend things to those bodies, especially council. So, and it wouldn't hurt if, when that meeting gets close. It helps, when that's getting closer, so it's on people's mind during the meeting. There's a lot of things floating around otherwise.
Well, I've got my original testimony still saved off in a draft, so I could whip that out again.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so that's all I had. I just wanted to bring some awareness to those council goals for us to focus on.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business from anyone? We can move on to action item recap here.
I was just gonna let you know that I did bring up to the PTO meeting last night with the principal that I had been talking with the superintendent, Andrew Kilstrom, for our district, for the school district, about a no idling campaign. I sent him the information for one of the Portland schools that did this initiative. He really loves the idea. It's just a lot of work. And so I offered to the PTO last night for their meeting, to the principal, and brought it to see if they would like to be one of the first schools at Rosemont Ridge to take on a no idling campaign for the district. And they actually think that's a great idea. And I told them that we would totally support them. The main thing that we cannot do, that Andrew told me, is he cannot have his maintenance crew put in a permanent sign. It's just like there's rules and regulations around it, but they can put in like a temporary sign, like a, cement bucket. This is no idling. Anyway, just want to let you know that it was brought up. The school is interested in doing it and wrapping it into actually maybe coming up with a better system for the drop off and pickup system, because Rosemont Ridge is really, really congested. It's one of the biggest ones that is a problem for the idling when parents are just sitting there. So, so yeah, it's in movement, which is great. And we might be one of the first schools in Westland to be able to take it on, which is nice.
Charity, I'm so proud of you. That's so great.
Yeah,
nicely done.
I don't know what I
That's
did, but
really-
I just talked to him. So.
I wonder, Charity, could we talk more about that at some point? Because I was talking to, my kids are at Trillium, and I was talking to someone on the green team, and he had brought up a no idling campaign as a possibility for Trillium.
Yeah, so I started the Green Team program at Trillium and the entire Eco School Network program at Trillium. So I can send you the information, Kate. That's no problem. It's a great draft. It's an easy thing to do. It actually probably be easier for Trillium to implement it than it will be for me at Rosemont. So yeah, I'm happy to share the information with you.
Yeah, because Mike, I don't know if you know Mike Kroger, who is part of the team. Yeah, so I was talking to Mike the other day, and he was saying, he brought that up, and I was like, I think that was something we were working on, or that you were working on.
It came from the Eco School Network. She presented it, and I'm glad just to share her draft with you, Kate. And yeah, it's super easy. I think, and for elementary level, I think the kids would go and run with it. For my situation, it kind of has to come from the staff and some passionate students who want to take it on. So.
Hey, Charity, if you could share that with me too. My kids go to the new AC Creek Middle School. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm happy to.
Yeah.
I will. I'll just send it to the whole group so you just have it. So because it's definitely a one that a school in Portland took on and did, and they even made videos for it. And but yeah, if we wanted to join forces and get people all interested in that, and just let them know that they do have the support of our superintendent, Andrew, but the PTO will help lead that. And also the PTO, they have to fund the signs. Like, they don't have money to do that, but those are easy. It's not hard to do. And I already have budget in mind to be able to cover costs for Rosemont for sure. So I'm glad to share it with everyone. And he's actually very interested in having more green initiatives that we can help just kind of initiate and kind of just nudge along for the district, because he just doesn't have the manpower. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So for action items recap, should be quick. I'm going to start the ball rolling in terms of coming up with ideas for the resolutions that we can propose council make. Greg is going to coordinate with Lisa Adado about a potential shared event at Robinwood Station. I guess collectively we need to start brainstorming about locations that we might recommend for EV charging stations to help facilitate the grant application process the city is going to be going through. And then Charity is going to be sharing information about the idling campaign with Kate and Dan.
And Victoria and I will talk with John Williams about the location, well, just what the city could do with regard to tax breaks to kind of bring in grocery stores in areas that need them.
Excellent. Okay. And I guess last but not least, closing remarks. Don't feel like I have any that I need to share here. Is anything anyone else would like to share with us?
October 14th, we will have a reception for the art exhibits that is going to be at the Westland Library in the community room. And Greg's wife got picked to be one of the artists there. So I think we should all go. It's from 3 to 5. And it's I'm gonna have, obviously, food and all that fun stuff, but it's gonna be really neat because it's mostly people from Westland that are exhibiting their art, and it's really some wonderful things that were submitted this year. So you should come.
What time?
3 to 5 it's a reception time on October 14th on Saturday.
On a related topic, not having a reception, but city council chambers, we did a refresh in there, and we have local artists in there on the walls too, just like they do at the library now. So
Right.
Yay.